You know, the classic story, category of story, I suppose, where the hero ventures out from his town, sees another part of the world, learns its ways, and then someday has to rise up against that which he left behind, his old home, with all its power and might compared to the new place that he's gotten so used to, turned against him, becoming the villain of the story, and the hero needs to rise up and defend his new home against the old. Well, that is what's happening this week in the regular season finale for the Halifax Masquerade Men in Prismatic Draft League Season 8, as I, a born and raised Ontarian, will be coaching the Masquerade Men against the almost undefeated Ontario Minccinos. Here are the standings as of the end of Week 7. You can see that the Minccinos are still in first place, still an evil empire to be taken down, even though they did take their first loss of the season last week. So I will not get a shot at giving them that first loss, as I was kind of anticipating. But it's still a very important matchup, and not only because of the inherent drama behind it, but you can see the Masquerade Men are here in a brutal playoff race with a lot of other teams. Let's see. Top 8 will make the playoffs, so I believe right now the Big Mode Bellybolt and the Iridescent Terrapagos are tied for the last playoff spot, and I do not know how that tie will be broken, if it's still there after Week 8, but the Masquerade Men are only 1 point of differential above those two teams, tied here with the Azurbe Chadots. And then there's another team down here at 4 and 3, and there are a couple at 3 and 4 that are still kind of scary. So I don't know for sure that this is a must-win matchup, but it might well be, and it is against the team that's been sitting in first place pretty much for the entire season. The Walreins were tied with them for a while, but they've never not been in first place, whether on their own or in that tie. And before we get to the matchup, so the trade deadline passed after Week 7, and there were a few trades. There were 4 trades in total. 2 of them we'll look at on Friday. But the other 2 were made by our very opponent, the Ontario Minccinos. They're pretty low impact, but we'll look at them anyway. First, the Minccinos dropped Shellos and picked up Cosmog. And that's a trade that looks pretty nonsensical at face value, but they only did it for one simple reason, and that is to make the point values work for the second trade, where they sent Cosmog to the Southern-style Groviles for Mincino. I'm pretty sure this trade is just symbolic. Obviously, they get their mascot trading for Mincino, and the coach did say in the Discord that they wanted Mincino to be a good luck charm for their team. I don't know that it brings much to the table other than that. I don't really know why Mincino was drafted in the first place, to be honest. Maybe it does something, but I've never figured out what. It does get tidy up, but it doesn't have a whole lot of stats. But yeah, effectively, they've turned Shellos into Mincino here, and I think it's just for the symbolism and good vibes heading into what they hope will be a deep, successful playoff run. Cosmog is just the middleman that makes the trade actually work. With that said, here's the matchup. The Mincinos have Mimikyu, Politoed, Clawitzer, Furret, Cottony, Trapinch, Drillbur, Torracat, Gotharita, Mincino, and Steenie. But most, if not all weeks so far this season, they've brought a specific 6 of Mimikyu, Politoed, Clawitzer, Furret, Torracat, and Gotharita. And that's been an absolute nightmare matchup for opponent after opponent. Again, they've gone 6-1 so far this season, leaning heavily on those specific Pokemon. And it's not hard to see why. There are a ton of overlapping synergies with this team that are pretty much straight out of Wolfglick's dreams. So Politoed and Clawitzer are a nice rain core because Politoed setting up the rain boosts water type attacks from both of them. Clawitzer has a rare, good consistent single target water type attack in Mega Launcher boosted Water Pulse. So it has the Mega Launcher ability, which boosts the power of certain pulse and bomb type moves. Water Pulse is one of those, so it is stronger when used by Clawitzer than anything else. Add the boost from the rain and it's doing a lot of damage. Then you have the Trick Room mode, Mimikyu able to set Trick Room, and then it and Clawitzer can exploit it. Mimikyu is kind of a nightmare Pokemon anyway, because with moves like Disguise and Swords Dance, it's a dangerous setup threat whenever it's on the field, but also by enabling the Clawitzer, which is a fairly slow Pokemon, you get that offensive dimension into their game plans. Then you throw in the Perish Trap mode, so they have the Politoed and the Gotharita. Gotharita, exactly like its evolved form Gothitelle, gets Shadow Tag. If you're watching this channel, you probably understand how this works. Politoed uses Perish Song and Gotharita traps opponents on the field. And then they can run Protect on everything, of course, but they also have Torracat for Intimidate and Fake Out Disruption. They have Mimikyu with its Disguise, giving it a guaranteed survivability into at least one hit. And all of this is tied together by the Furret using Follow Me to redirect attacks away from all of these different threats. So even though they keep bringing the same 6 Pokemon week after week, they have a lot of different synergies that they can bring out with them, and so it's extremely difficult in the builder to prepare for everything this team can throw at you. And that's not even accounting for the other 5 Pokemon that they might well bring, because I've been a little bit open in recent Friday videos about having noticed that this team keeps spamming the same 6, and now I'm kind of in my head about whether I should have kept quieter about that. We could see something different this week. That said, I don't find the rest of this team super convincing. Trapinch, I actually could see them bringing Trapinch against me because I've run a lot of Trick Room this season, with Torkoal being one of the very slowest Pokemon in the game. Trapinch actually is even slower than Torkoal, the extremely rare Pokemon that boasts that distinction. And with Arena Trap, it traps grounded Pokemon on the field, and it actually has a very high attack stat for being fully unevolved like that. So Trapinch might be something interesting that they try to throw at me. Otherwise, I don't really know what some of these other Pokemon even do. Minccino I talked about already, but like, a lot of these are kind of just worse versions of their evolved form. Cottonee is kind of like Baby Whimsicott, except it doesn't get Tailwind, but it does get some other disruptive options. It's a real Pokemon, it's just a lot less than a Whimsicott. Steenie, of course, evolves into Sarina, but Steenie does not get Queenly Majesty. So, I mean, I guess I can throw off Grass-type attacks and, like, Triple Axle. It could give them some additional coverage in some matchups and maybe run an Eviolite, although Torracat and Gothorita both really want the Eviolite already. But I'm not super worried about Steenie. Drillbur is kind of like Baby Excadrill, except not a Steel type, but honestly, I don't really know how that fits on this team. Maybe it's a good threat to have into electric types, although they've mostly been covering electric types with like Terra Dragon and just good positional play. And my electric type on this team, of course, is immune to ground. So I think it's very likely that I see the usual 6, possibly with Trapinch mixed in, maybe with Minccino mixed in for content if they decide to give me some content like that. But otherwise, I would expect the same. I'd expect the same Pokemon we'd be seeing a lot of the time from this team, but that's still a nightmare to deal with. And I definitely had a hard time in the builder. I'm still second guessing some choices right now, and it's a couple days before we play, so I may yet have time to change my mind about some things. But I am starting with something that has been absolutely lethal ever since I picked it up at mid-season, and that is the Quiver Dance Pom-Pom Oricorio. This time I'm running Hurricane to try to take advantage of the opponent's rain. One small issue that Oricorio has is that its stats are not very good, so even after a double Quiver Dance boost with the Lilligant activating Dancer, those air slashes still don't necessarily hit very hard, and I could especially feel that into bulky Pokemon like Politoed and like either Gothorita or Torracat, whichever one has the Eviolite, probably Gothorita. So I figured I might as well try to take advantage of my opponent's rain. I am not bringing Sun this week, I believe for the first time all season. Let's just get that out of the way right now. There is no Sun on my team, so I have the ability to take advantage of rain as long as it's on the field. I might as well go for the higher upside attack with the Hurricane. I kind of wanted to fit Feather Dance onto this set to weaken the Mimikyu and bypass Disguise if I don't have a means to break that quickly, because Mimikyu really is a terrifying Pokemon in this format. I'm surprised it went undrafted as long as it did, and also that nobody banned it. Maybe I should have banned it, but I didn't think about it. But I decided I didn't have room for Feather Dance on this set. It's just Roost and Protect, Citrus Berry, bulky EV spread, try to get Oricorio set up and going. And obviously that is vulnerable to Perish Trap, but hopefully I have some other outs to Perish Trap that will make themselves clear as we get further into this team. And also, it is Terra Ghost Oricorio. The main reason I picked that is actually to avoid Fake Out from the Torracat, so that I have an option. I have Protect as well, but I have an option to make a different move besides Protect and still not get faked out, because I want the opportunity to throw off attacks frequently into this team so that they can't just let Mimikyu and Torracat and the like run wild and grind out a position that I can't overcome. So I wanted multiple answers to Fake Out on Oricorio if it's going to be my setup attacker, and as a side effect of Terra Ghost, I do also get to switch it out against Shadow Tag. It cannot be trapped. One thing to address here, with this EV spread and some of the others, I'm having a really hard time figuring out my speed stats in this matchup, and I would not be surprised if I make some changes between now and when I play. I'll tell you if I do make any changes, but A lot of my opponents, so Pokemon like Mimikyu especially, and Politoed against some of my team, can be faster if they want, but my opponent is not super likely to invest in speed because they usually play Trick Room. Mimikyu is their fastest Pokemon. It's the fastest Pokemon in the matchup, but given that it's so often used as a Trick Room setter, I'm not sure that it will be fast, but it could be fast, and that might mean that I have to cover for that. It's a hard thing to evaluate. And so I've made different choices on different Pokemon this week. With Oricorio, I've not invested in speed, and part of the reason for that is that I have a certain something that can help it get a speed boost without using its own action. So I can make it fast anyway. But yeah, I just went for maximum power on the Hurricane and then bulk the rest of the way, and hopefully that'll work out. And obviously you know what the next Pokemon is. Lilligant is here. The ability might surprise you. Both of Lilligant's other abilities, Chlorophyll and whatever the third one is, Leaf Guard I think, involve Sun, and I'm not bringing Sun this week. So I don't know. I don't think Own Tempo is going to be valuable, but it's probably the best of an almost useless lot for Lilligant's abilities this week. Covert Cloak is here. I don't want them to be able to fake Lilligant out, especially since I don't have Protect on this set. Maybe I should have Protect, but I opted against. Max Speed. So again, this is where I'm making a different decision with some of my speed control. What does Max Speed Lilligant do? I believe it ties Max Speed Torracat. Yeah, they have the same base speed. So I don't know if it'll be fast Torracat, but I can't rule out that it might, so I decided I might as well go for that. I do want Mimikyu to be able to go fast. Sorry, Lilligant to be able to go fast. I would prefer that Mimikyu not be fast, and also not set Trick Room, please. But yeah, that way I can click Sleep Powder into things quickly, and with the Covert Cloak, Torracat can't stop it with a Fake Out, and also Torracat is never guaranteed to outspeed Lilligant, unless it runs a Scarf, which is extremely unlikely, I think. It's a speed tie at worst. Instead of Protect, I did throw Encore into this set. I think that's a fun move when the opponent has a game plan that could involve a lot of Fake Out and Protect and pivoting around. I think I could really, you know, if I bring it out at just the right moment, it could be very disruptive into their team. Maybe it's a little bit too much flair thrown on here, but I definitely think it could be fun. And Terra Water, because the main threats that they have into Lilligant are like random Ice Beam on Politoed or Flare Blitz on Clawitzer or something like that, so Water is a pretty reasonable Terra type into this matchup, especially with Water Spam being sort of their main offensive mode. But yeah, otherwise Lilligant is here to click Quiver Dance and try to get the Oricorio going, and as always with that Dancer interaction, like you've seen in past weeks, Oricorio can Protect and Quiver Dance in the same turn, or Roost and Quiver Dance, or Hurricane and Quiver Dance, or use Quiver Dance twice. That said, this was sort of the first mode that I knew I was bringing, because Oricorio has been extremely strong into my opponent's team, and while Perish Trap is an issue for setup, it otherwise matches up very well into them. But when I really sat down and started cooking, it was actually the next two Pokemon that I started figuring out the specifics on first. So we have another duo coming up here, and it starts with this Grookey. Grookey is here setting up the grassy terrain, and this set really only makes sense with the next set after it. I thought about showing them together, but I didn't really want to mess with my image format. But Grookey is here to do big damage into specific targets and try to pick them off quickly. So I'll just show the next Pokemon now. Actually, it's Hitmonlee. Kind of an odd Hitmonlee set. We'll talk about it in a second, but the moves are Fake Out, Knockoff, Ghost, Terra Blast, and Close Combat. And so the idea here is if I identify specific threats, I can hopefully snipe them with this duo, or I can bring them in an endgame when I've already worn the opponent's team down, and they can just go to work. So Grookey Grassy Glide can break Mimikyu's Disguise with priority, and then Hitmonlee hits it hard with a Ghost Terra Blast. Hitmonlee can knock off Gothorita's Eviolite, and then there's a good chance that it's KO'd by Grookey's Woodhammer from there. Grookey also is just an offensive threat to Politoed and Clawitzer before they Terrastallize, so it can maybe force Terras out from those Mons. And the Water Terra Blast is an attempt to kind of cover for Torracat. I actually have had a lot of trouble figuring out the specifics of Grookey's set, even though it's a relatively simple Pokemon. There are like 3 different things here that I'm reconsidering, even as I talk through it right now. I had Clear Amulet penciled in as the item for a while, because Torracat and Intimidate can really mess with all my Grookey game plans. But I think in the end, I want Grookey to be able to take a hit, and I'll just have to try to deal with Torracat in other ways. And originally my plan was have the Oricorio and Lilligant at preview, make my opponent react to it, and then lead Grookey and Hitmonlee. But the more I thought through the different ways that Torracat could mess with my plan, the more I'm thinking I actually might just lead Oricorio Lilligant, at least in game 1. force out the opponent's adjustment to it, do what damage I can, and then try to use Grookey and Hitmonlee to clean up. I think that might be a better use of those 2 Pokemon. But yeah, I was thinking about Clear Amulet. I might still do that in the lead up to the game, but Eviolite is where I'm leaning right now. What else? Oh, the speed. Grookey has a really awkward speed tier in this matchup. 252 speed EVs with a neutral nature. I think exactly outspeeds unboosted or uninvested Mimikyu. So I feel a little bit more comfortable with that in a late game offense role, but maybe I should invest more in Grookey's bulk, and maybe I'll think about it. Finally, Grassy Glide, Woodhammer, and Terra Blast are all important to what I want to do with this Pokemon, but the other move is kind of up in the air. The last move I was going to say, although it's the first move because I always put Fake Out in the first slot, I think there's a good case for either Protect or U-Turn in that slot instead of Fake Out, but I like, especially if I'm using this in late game cleanup role, having that Fake Out pressure to enable Hitmonlee to cook. And Hitmonlee also has Fake Out, so if I bring them in together late game, I can click Fake Out with one while the other one attacks into something, and I can, buy a little bit more momentum and close the game out a little more smoothly that way. I will reconsider Fake Out on Grookey. I think I'm good with it on Hitmonlee. This is kind of a weird Hitmonlee set. A lot of my Hitmonlee sets have been kind of weird throughout the season, but I really am trying to take advantage of it being a weird Pokemon that can do a lot of surprising things. That ability is not correct. I'm just noticing right now as I look at the image. I definitely glanced over it having Limber multiple times and just thought that was Unburden until now. I will go change it to Unburden as soon as I'm finished recording. But with the Grassy Seed, it should take hits from the likes of Torracat. There's not a ton of physical offense on my opponent's team, but yeah, a little bit harder for Torracat and maybe Mimikyu to ruin its day. And then the rest is Hitmonlee's moves, for the most part, very specifically chosen to team up with Grookey to snipe specific targets to disrupt whatever the opponent's game plan might be. So again, if it's Perish Trap stuff, I'm looking for Knockoff and Woodhammer to Gothorita. If it's Mimikyu setup stuff, I'm looking for Grassy Glide and Ghost Terra Blast. And so that was the basic guiding principle behind Hitmonlee's set. Both Grookey and Hitmonlee are running max attack, so they can hopefully actually get those KOs, although Torracat can be an issue, admittedly. Terra Ghost, in addition to being super effective in a Mimikyu, again has the benefit that Hitmonlee can switch out of a Perish Trap. And then I considered a few options for the last move slot, but I think Close Combat is valuable because Knockoff and Ghost Terra Blast is pretty weird coverage, especially if I'm not going to Terra Slice Hitmonlee in every game. But I have, with Close Combat, just a strong stab to throw at something like a Politoed or Clawitzer, especially in some later game positions. For the last 2 Pokemon, I did not have, my ideas were not as clear. I had a few different ideas, including one really fun, silly one that I am not bringing. So I'll reveal what that was when either I get a playoff rematch with the Minccinos, or I know for sure that I won't be getting a playoff rematch. But either way, I'll keep that in my back pocket for now. I have chosen a couple Pokemon that I think are kind of just generically good in this matchup, but I am still wondering whether there's something more specific that I can think of to tie my game plans together. If there is, I haven't come up with it so far, but I think Gastrodon is pretty solid in this matchup. With this set, it should be able to make Clawitzer kind of sad in a lot of situations, because of course with the Storm Drain, it's immune to that dangerous Water Pulse and also the Water Weather Ball from Politoed. And Clawitzer's coverage is mostly shut down by the Fairy type. The Clawitzer could run like a Grass Terra or something. That's definitely a possibility, but Clawitzer's sort of standard coverage is moves like Dragon Pulse, Aura Sphere, and Dark Pulse. So Terra Fairy Gastrodon, still being of course immune to water with the Storm Drain, can in theory maybe just sit on the field and ruin Clawitzer's day. And given that my opponent's main Trick Room attackers are Clawitzer and to a lesser extent Mimikyu, Gastrodon is also kind of my Trick Room retaliation answer here. I've brought some fast Pokemon, so I could actually be in trouble if my opponent sets Trick Room. Hopefully things like Lilligant Sleep Powder and Protect on a few Pokemon can help with that. Also Fake Outs on Grookey and Hitmonlee. But I also have Gastrodon underspeeding Clawitzer, at least if it doesn't run a speed dropping item. I think if Clawitzer really wants to underspeed Gastrodon, there's probably a way. I haven't fully looked into it. But I am running min speed Gastrodon here, so it will underspeed any Clawitzer set in Trick Room, at least without a speed dropping item. And otherwise, I just have solid offensive coverage into my opponent's team. Muddy Water will be boosted by Rain and hit both targets. Ice Beam is strong into the Dragon Terras that they like to run on Pokemon like Politoed and Clawitzer, and also strong into Grass Terras, so those sort of obvious defensive terror types that they keep going back to are covered by Ice Beam. I wanted Ice type damage somewhere on this team because of that, and Earth Power is sort of the best neutral option I have into things like Unterastalized, Politoed, and Clawitzer. I considered putting Yawn on Gastrodon to help me stall out Trick Room turns, but I think Gastrodon is better off just going for damage in this matchup, especially if it gets that rain boosted Muddy Water. And you can see I've invested a lot in its special attack and then just throwing the rest into HP. And finally, I am bringing Haunter once again. I believe I've brought Haunter every week since I picked it up so far. Again, not a super inspired pick, just a Pokemon that I think is good. Haunter outspeeds anything except Mimikyu, I think. I think Mimikyu is 1 base speed point higher than Haunter, but this set will outspeed anything else. Shadow Ball just has really good neutral coverage into my opponent's team, handles everything except the 2 normal types in for it and Mincino. Sludge Bomb is neutral into those, and then Taunt is another way to potentially deny a Trick Room or a Perish Song or something like that. Pretty straightforward. I considered a few different Haunter sets, but I think this is reasonable enough for a Pokemon that I'm kind of plugging in as an offensive piece that I can bring most likely in a game 2 or 3 situation if I've seen a way that my opponent can handle the first 4 Pokemon, right? I have the switch up available with Haunter with strong neutral coverage. Again, Taunt to shut down some of their other modes. And since I'm running a Focus Sash set with a lot of offensive investment on a very frail Pokemon as usual, I don't really see any value in a defensive Terra type here. There's not even any value in a Ghost Terra to switch out of Shadow Tag, because Haunter can do that anyway. It's already a Ghost type. So I thought, might as well take the extra damage from an offensive Terra type on either Shadow Ball or Sludge Bomb, but then I don't feel strongly about which of those I want, so Stellar it is. I'll get a one-time boost on each of them. That is the team this week. It's definitely going to be a tough set. The Minccinos are in first place for a reason, but I'm really hoping that Quiverdance or Oricorio can continue to shine, or that the Hitmonlee and Grookey sets can surprise them, in specific positions, whether it's the Gothorita, the Politoed, or the Mimikyu that they're leaning on. I have answers to all of those. The Torracat is a bit more of a problem. Gastrodon should be able to make Torracat sad as well as Clawitzer, but a lot is going to come down to how each of us plays it, and the only way to find out how that goes is to cut to the battles right now. Funny thing, I actually stopped that recording earlier, and I went and did something else for a while, and then I realized I still hadn't fixed Hitmonlee's ability, but I have now, I think. Yeah. No other changes. One other thing that I forgot to mention in the first part is, because my opponent likes to use defensive Dragon and Grass Terra types, I did check whether Hitmonlee can learn Triple Axle, but I was very disappointed to find that it doesn't. That is a kicking move, isn't it? Anyway, it's the same 6 as always with this team. Well, always so far. Maybe there'll be a surprise in the playoffs. They'll definitely make it. I probably will if I win, but maybe not otherwise. So I'm a little nervous here. But I'm going to do what I said, what I think I said. Lilligant, Oricorio, Hitmonlee, Grookey, game 1. And we can adjust after that. Okay, they're letting Clawitzer and Gothorita, so my Pokemon are trapped. I do have the Terra Ghost available on the Oricorio, but also I want to try to set up here. I might want to Terra Ghost anyway, because then I can't be faked out by Gothorita, and I can just go for 2 Quiver Dances immediately. I actually do like that. Do I like that? It might be better turn 1 to protect and Sleep Powder Gothorita. That does leave Lilligant open to an attack, but I don't want Gothorita to set Trick Room. So I think I will go for that. They fake out into Lilligant, but that's fine. Dragon Pulse into Lilligant, survives, okay. We missed the Sleep Powder. That's unfortunate. I can go for another one, but at that point I am sacking Lilligant to Dragon Pulse, so this is tough. I can Encore and Encore Quiver Dance, or I can just click Quiver Dance twice. Yeah, I mean, if they led this, they probably have Trick Room, right? But maybe they don't click it this turn. Maybe they anticipate a Sleep Powder attempted again. So I'm going to double Quiver Dance here. It's the higher upside play. They switch Politoed in. Okay. Oh. Is that Scarf Clawitzer? Well, now I don't have to worry about Trick Room probably for the rest of the set. I still get 1 Quiver Dance here. I don't want to let Politoed Perish Song. So I'm gonna go Grookey. And I think I'm just gonna fake out Politoed and Hurricane. Maybe I'm leaving myself vulnerable to the Clawitzer, but I mean, that's the problem with playing this team, right? This is why the Minccinos are doing so well. I'm so focused down on the possible threats that the Gothorita and Politoed could create. I'm just letting this Clawitzer keep attacking. But there's only so much he can do. Either my game plan will work out or it won't. But I'm expecting Politoed to Terrastallize here. Oh, it just protects. Okay, fair enough. I could have had another Quiver Dance there, but oh well. Now they have Fake Out available with the Gothorita, though. Well, I don't have Protect on Grookey, so I'll just throw a Wood Hammer into Politoed. They can Perish Trap Grookey. Of course, they can't trap Oricorio. I think I do spring the Terra Ghost here, so that Oricorio can't be faked out. I could confuse Politoed. Maybe it's better to target down the Gothorita, though. So since they've only taken a KO, even if I take a couple turns to knock out Gothorita, I still have to lose something to the Perish Song. But what can you do? They're Dragon Politoed. They do fake out the Oricorio. I could have just doubled into Politoed here, but I overthought it. There's the Perish Song. They can just protect through this turn. This is where it might be nice to have U-turn on Grookey. Yeah, that would... Well, I mean, they can protect through this turn anyway. Of course, Oricorio can switch out at any time, so it might be best to just do it now, actually. And then if I can pressure the Gothorita out, then I might still be able to save Grookey. I'm only giving up one Quiver Dance boost. It's still not great, but I'm going to do it. Get Hitmonlee in, get my Unburden. Yeah, they protect through this turn, of course. Oh, they actually Weather Ball Hitmonlee. Alright. Well, I'll try to get the KO on the Gothorita here if I can. Yeah, this one sure is unraveling. Maybe I needed the Grookey Hitmonlee lead after all. I just got so in my head about the Torcat, which is probably lurking in the back, though I haven't seen it so far. Okay, that actually knocks out the Gothorita, so that's good. That's not as bulky a Gothorita as I thought it might be, is partly what that means. Rain is over. That said, I think I do actually have to consider letting Grookey go down here. If it's... Oh, it's not the Clawitzer coming in, it's the Mimikyu. I might be able to just switch Oricorio in. Just make a cheeky little switch. And Politoed is leftovers. We don't know Mimikyu's item. I think it's worth it to knock off into Mimikyu. They can protect through this anyway, but knock off into Mimikyu, break the disguise, get rid of its item. You see Clawitzer switching in. Life Orb Mimikyu, okay. Play rough, knocks out Hitmonlee. That sadly means I don't get a knockoff into Clawitzer. But I do get now to reset the grassy terrain, and actually Oricorio can use it too because I've turned off the flying typing. I'll go straight for a Quiver Dance. And fake out Clawitzer this turn. I don't think it can protect. The Eviolite on Grookey might come in handy here. Swords Dance Mimikyu, figures. It actually activates Dancer, but that doesn't do anything good for me. That is kind of funny, though. And then... See, now I'm just in so much danger against this Mimikyu. I can't really worry about the Clawitzer, right? So I'm going to Hurricane Mimikyu and Grassy Glide, I guess. We'll see what kind of damage this does. They Shadow Sneak Oricorio. Oricorio does survive and eat the Citrus Berry, but that's a lot of damage. We do get the KO on Mimikyu, but Clawitzer knocks Oricorio out with a Dark Pulse, and I don't think Grookey solos it from here, so it's looking like a game 1 loss. Let's throw a Wood Hammer into Clawitzer. I was going to lose to Politoed anyway. This team is such a nightmare. I think I actually had a lot of good stuff into it, but it's so hard to deal with. They didn't bring Torracat. So maybe I lead the Grookey Hitmonlee in game 2. Do I want to bring anybody else? The Clawitzer is not locking itself into water attacks, probably because... Well, at least early game, because it's covering for the Gastrodon in the back. That means the Gastrodon might not be that valuable for me. I'm not especially feeling the Haunter either, though. I mean... Yeah, the Mimikyu is carrying Shadow Sneak. I don't think there's Trick Room anywhere on this team this week. So taunting them is not as effective as it might have been. It can shut down a Perish Song plan. But then Haunter is vulnerable to the Gothorita. I think I bring the same Pokemon, but I flip the order. And we'll live or die by this. Okay, it's Gothorita Clawitzer lead again. If I just remove the Gothorita, then I never have to worry about Perish Trap. But Clawitzer is an issue. Also, they're just going to let me do this. Also, they have Fake Out. I mean, I could fake them. You know what I could do? I can Woodhammer Clawitzer and Fake Out Gothorita this turn. Even if that just forces out a Terra on Clawitzer. Well, that would probably be bad, but it's progress of a sort. Air Dragon, okay. Dragon Pulse to the Hitmonlee, doesn't KO, good. Let's do this now. Let's double up into Gothorita. They can switch. They don't. They do knock out Grookey and Hitmonlee. Alright. The Gothorita is not as bulky as I feared, but it is bulky enough for that position. And it's all up to these two now. Well, we know that Clawitzer is a threat to Lilligant. Even so, it's selected a Dragon Pulse, so my Water Terra doesn't do anything useful here. I think I just have to get Oricorio, try to get Oricorio set up, and then if the Politoed comes in, knock it out and deny a Perish Song. Is it going to work? I'm not confident that it is, but... Alright, Lilligant takes 1 Dragon Pulse, so I do get 2 Quiver Dances up this turn. The Mimikyu is a massive problem. I think it might be worthwhile to use Lilligant's last turn in this game to... they'll just Shadow Sneak Lilligant, won't they? Well, it doesn't matter. I don't have Protect anyway, so yeah, click Sleep Powder into Mimikyu. And Hurricane. Okay. I missed the Hurricane. That Dragon Pulse still does so much. Alright, well, I think that's GG's. I don't think I beat Mimikyu from here. Honestly, why did nobody ban Mimikyu? Why didn't I ban Mimikyu? I guess it flew under my radar and probably everyone else's, huh? I guess if I could confuse Mimikyu with this Hurricane, then it is still technically possible to win this. But we don't even connect. And that is GG's to the Ontario Minccinos. They will make sure to hold on to first place all the way through the season. And the Masquerademen finish at 4-4. We'll find out over the next couple days in real time and on Friday in content time whether we've made the playoffs or not. At 4-4 in this extremely competitive season, I think it's unlikely, but we'll see. If this is the end of the season, I actually feel pretty good about it. It's been a fun one. My draft had a lot of tricks up its sleeve, maybe too many for me to get my head around all of them. But once I dropped the Umbreon stuff and pivoted to Oricorio, obviously it didn't work this week, but it was a lot of fun in a couple of other weeks. And I've definitely really enjoyed this draft, and I've really enjoyed this season, which I would definitely say has been the most difficult in the PDL so far, across the board. So, playoffs, like I said, my guess is that 4-4 is not good enough to make it, but we'll see. But either way, if this is the end of the season, yeah, it's been a good one for sure. I've really enjoyed it, and hopefully it's been fun to watch. But yeah, come back on Friday and we'll see how the rest of the season finale shook out, regular season finale shook out, and who was going to the playoffs in the end.